12 o'clock noon, right on the nose here. We'll get started. Hi, my name is Dan Mock. I'm from Northern Lakes Community Mental Health, and this is our Tools for Resilience presentation. We're looking at just trying to keep ourselves safe online, some of the tips and tricks that you might want to try. And I'm joined today by Joe
Alberta.
From North Country, CMH. Joe, you're the CIO up there? Want to
Correct,
give
yes.
an introduction of yourself?
Sure. So I am originally from downstate, West Michigan, and I came up here about 7 years ago and started with North Country. My background is in network engineering. So hopefully I can, add some information here to this and help people be a little safer. So, yeah.
Awesome. And I also have Jeremiah Williams from Northern Lakes Community Mental Health. Jeremiah, you want to give yourself a brief introduction?
Hi, I'm Jeremiah Williams. I've been with Northern Lakes Community Mental Health for 7 years now. Been in IT for around 22 years total. Grew up in the Cadillac area. And yeah, pretty excited to give you some tips and tricks on how to stay safe online and hopefully enlighten you guys. Maybe you know a lot of things, but we just hit on that one or two things that potentially keep you safe. Thank you.
And I should probably introduce myself a little bit further. I am the CIO here. I've been at Northern Lakes for 6 years now. And my background, actually, I'm a mechanical engineer that kind of went onto the dark side of things in the IT realm when I realized that people didn't actually know how to manage computers to make them productive for the end user. So that's really been my focus, is to try to enable end users or staff members to be more productive with the tools that we can provide. So that's my background. I've been doing this for, 35, 40 years now, probably. So it's been a long road, but that's my background, and I think we can just dive right in. I'm going to take us to our first slide, which is really just 10 tips. I think that's where we're going to start off. First tip basically is to use strong and unique passwords. Guys, join in.
Yeah, so I think that when we talk about strong and unique passwords, we have an emphasis on strong, and I think people are doing really well with strong. Where I see that there are some issues are unique. So let me give you an example. If you're using the same password on multiple sites, let's say you use the same password on Amazon, and you also use that same password for some hobby site that you're on, that password, they're not going to compromise you necessarily. They're going to compromise that hobby site, and then they're going to have your password, and then they're going to try it at any site they possibly can. So, strong passwords is something I think as a society we've gotten pretty good at, but unique passwords is really the next stage of making sure that you're protecting yourself. So if one site's compromised, all sites are not compromised.
Yeah, exactly. And it's always, like you said, Joe, the other site, it's, e-cards or Flowers R Us or something like that, they really may not have the technical expertise to actually protect your information as well as an Amazon might. So they get compromised, and next thing you know, that somebody's got your email address and a password that you use. They're going to try that on anything and everything they possibly can try it on. And that gets them in the door. So unique passwords, I think, are really the next thing we need to try to.
Yeah.
One of the issues, though, Joe, with that is, you start getting unique passwords. 40 sites, sharing the same password. That's almost manageable, for a user. But we're looking here. We use a password management tool. We're using Keeper. I think you were using that as well. There's other ones, LastPass, OnePass. 1Password, I think, is an up-and-coming one right now.
It working.
Yeah. So those tools I think are really, really unique in a way that they can simplify that management of passwords. They kind of work like the autofill on your browser. Any other unique features that they could offer for you? Someone?
Yeah, you can have them store and each password manager is different, but they can hold your credit card information for you as well, so you're not storing it in your browser. And I know like a solution like Keeper, they actually encrypt that data on your machine. And if you use that across the cloud, and what I mean by that is have it on your cell phone as well, then if you update your password manager on one machine, then you'll have it on your iPhone or your Android device, or, it really helps carrying your passwords with you. And I personally like to use it for the credit card information, just so I don't have to, keep my credit cards on me at all time where they could be stolen or, pickpocketed. You just got to be careful that you use the right credit card. I did make that mistake before. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cool features, and some of them even allow you. So we have Keeper in our organization, but they also allow you to have personal accounts as well. So I have two accounts. For instance, I keep all my personal passwords separated from my organization's passwords. So then, say if I was sick or something unforeseen happened or I left the agency, the organization can get into those accounts and recover those passwords so we're not set back as far as a turnaround time, accessing a site. You can easily share passwords out of there, across members, like for instance, on my personal account, I can share my Netflix password with my wife easily, so she can easily sign and not have to remember that password. And it's not only for storing those passwords, but it helps you generate really strong passwords. So you can have 40, character or whatever the max is for that site, and make it almost impossible for anybody to brute force attack and crack your passwords. So another thing with passwords is these standards change all the time, but some websites, they'll require an 8-character password. I never recommend that. I recommend at least 13 if possible, with uppercase, lowercase, special characters, numbers, and no dictionary words within that as well to make it harder. And a password manager will allow that for generating passcodes. They'll generate as short or as long as a password you need. Because believe it or not, some websites do have a limit on the length of the password. So it's nice to have a good password manager that allows you to have, as long a password as you want. I think it's like 127 characters down to even 6 or 4 they'll generate, for those weaker things that, are set up that way. And that's what I have to say about that.
Well, and a password manager also, I mean, if you've ever gotten into a site, can't remember your password, and it starts asking you what your first car was, or your mother's maiden name, obviously you probably remember that, or your first roommate, those kind of questions. A good password manager will allow you to keep that information in there as well. So as you answer those questions, when you're signing up for a site, the good password manager will kind of help you keep that information in one spot as well. Kind of handy.
Another good feature of a good password manager is sometimes you forget how to even get to a site. Well, if you take the time to set up a password manager, you can have it launch the site, log you in automatically and everything, because it's all stored in that application. So, if you are looking at a password manager, spend the time to not just fill out the username and password, but they usually have more fields for like the URL, other notes like Dan was saying. I have notes for some of my entries of just special login procedures that I have to take. So I'd really look into a password manager these days, this day and age.
Joe, you have anything else to add on the password and such? I will say.
Not really. I was going to say, I really recommend that folks look at this. This is the best way to keep the unique and strong passwords, in play at all times. So.
Yeah. But I was going to say that I think it's a misnomer to call them passwords anymore. I think we should be talking about passphrases, and look at, something more complex than something like a single word with a bunch of, mumbo jumbo characters injected into it. But so think about passphrases more so, making them longer, into the 13 and more characters like Jeremiah had mentioned. So that kind of really, for the most part. Next item we had on our list was enabling two-factor authentication. Joe, you want to?
Yeah, this is a big one. This is part of the password model or the security model of something that which is your password, and something that you have, which would be a two-factor authentication. And that can take many forms. The most common form, or the two most common form, is you receive, an email or a text message that says, type this code in for your bank. And that's better than nothing. Although those areas people are able to hack those areas and compromise those areas. The recommendation is a two-factor authentication app. So that could be Google, it could be Microsoft, any number of ones out there. And then you're able to, take a QR code with your phone, and then every time you go to log into that, you can type your password in or have your password manager put it in. And then you can grab that code that regenerates every 30 seconds. So that's something that you have. That way, even if somebody knows your password, they don't have what you have to verify that. That's what's so key about two-factor authentication. The fact that without that code, it doesn't matter how much information they have about you, they can't get in. So, think of it as the deadbolt on your lock, that extra little bit just to make sure that you're safe. And this is one of those things that I cannot, advise enough. Now, for some people, this can be challenging, having lots of multi-factor. Now, I think we would all agree we recommend to put it on any site that you can. But, the number one thing I tell people is if you're going to choose one thing to put two-factor authentication, and I wouldn't recommend just one, but if you were going to choose just one, please put it on your email. The reason being is how many times have you went to a website, if you didn't have a password manager, forgot your password, clicked forgot password, and how do you get it? You get it through your email. Your email is your key to everything else. So at a minimum, I always tell people, have multi-factor authentication on your email. Now, in a perfect world, put it everywhere it lets you, because it will protect you more and more, right? But I think that if you're going to choose one, that email is the key, because it's the key to everything. We use it every day when we forget our passwords, and that sort of thing. So, that's one thing I want to say about that. I don't know, Dan or Jeremiah, if you've got some more to say about that.
Yeah, sure. One of the things that I do typically is I like to put that two-factor authenticator on multiple devices, and you're able to, like, when that QR code comes up, you can take that QR code and you can snap that with your iPhone, or your Android phone. If you've got a tablet as well, you could pull that tablet up and put it on there as well, and then both those devices will generate the same exact key. So it gives you a little more flexibility, so I'm not running upstairs to grab my phone if I'm sitting here with my tablet. I can get the information on either one of the devices to validate that two-factor as well. So that's kind of handy. And Joe, you mentioned as well, we might emphasize this, that most password managers will give you a way to manage that right within the password manager as well. So you can log into some place and it'll plug in your username, your password, and then when it asks for that two-factor key, it'll plug that in as well. So a good manager is something you should, maybe be looking at. And I'd like to go back to the password manager just for a second. I started using one quite a while ago, and I found it took me months to get into the habit and get things configured. I think a lot of times people might pull up a password manager and use it for one or two accounts and go, oh, this is too hard, and kind of walk away from it. But I think you just got to kind of dedicate yourself to it for a while and decide you're going to make it work. And then it just makes your life so much easier once you get that going.
Yeah, so to kind of close the loop on the first two, if you use a strong password and it's a unique password, and if that password is hacked for a certain site, because you've used a unique one, you don't have to worry about changing your password at multiple sites. And then when you factor in the fact that two-factor, if you do have a two-factor enabled on that account, that's another thing that gives you a peace of mind. So if your email is hacked, but yet you have two-factor, so if they have your email address and password, heaven forbid, and you're aware of this, it doesn't matter because they won't be able to sign in because they don't have the token to actually finish the sign-in process, which will give you time enough to change your password. So that kind of closes the loop on the first two. If you take those first two steps, it really goes a long way in protecting you online.
Okay. Let's move on to the be cautious with your personal information. I mean, everybody pays attention to this, I think. We all think we're being really cautious with our personal information. But one of the things that I don't think we realize is there's not somebody sitting out there on a computer jotting this down on a tablet or something, and taking notes on you. I mean, this is very sophisticated stuff with databases of information with you in it and relationships of you to other people even, in a way that as they work through this stuff, I'm talking about bots basically and software out there running that's collecting it. They're collecting that information and they're just building a bigger and bigger picture in this database about you specifically, with the goal of compromising somewhere, somehow, that information or gathering enough information, whether it be to convince somebody else that it's you emailing them to get information from them or what. That's what's really going on there. So you really need to be guarded with any personal information.
Hey, Dan, I want to add something to this that's near and dear to my heart, which is the classic Facebook post that says, hey, what's the first car that you ever drove? Yeah. Hey, what's the first city that you ever went on a date with? Those are not meant to be fun social experiments. Those are meant to figure out what Dan was talking about earlier, the secret answers to questions. So my number one thing is don't participate in anything on social media that asks you questions like that. Anything like that, it's not a fun social experiment. It's a way to gather information. So, along the same lines of we think about this I'm not going to give my social security number out. I'm not going to give you my driver's license number, but I'll freely tell you one of my parents, where I was born. Oh, where were you born in, like this, or what city did you do this in? And we answer those things freely all day long, not making that connection where we'd never give them our social security number. But the combination of all this information then allows you to do things like the secret questions and get into things that do have your social security number and your driver's license and all those sorts of things. So this one's near and dear to my heart. I see it happen every day on Facebook. And for anybody who's listening, be really careful about those kinds of things.
And one other thing that I recommend is for the secret questions. I don't know why sites still use that, but if you are filling out, setting up a new account, and they ask secret questions and you have to, it's a requirement. What I always recommend is have something in your back pocket that you remember. So say one of the secret questions are, what was the name of your first pet? Okay. Never use your name of your first pet. Name something that you associate with that. So say like, well, my favorite place to go is Hawaii, for instance. So you could put something that's totally unrelated that nothing would be, related to that question, or they couldn't guess what that secret question is. Because like Joe was saying, those farming, that's all that Facebook and those sites are doing is they're farming that information. And, that's how back in the day, Sarah Palin's accounts were hacked because it was just a matter of guessing her name for her dog, which was, widely available on social media. So this isn't just stuff that we're making up. This happens all the time. And you really have to be careful. And that's a great point, Joe. Every time I see that on Facebook where somebody asks, what was the first model car you made? I always reply back to people that answer that are on my friends. I say, don't answer that, because all they are is they're farming for this information. If you can delete this, delete that. And the damage is done probably as soon as they put that information up there. But yeah, that's an excellent point.
Yeah, and I just think it's also important to remember that it's not necessarily people doing this. It's a piece of software and a database being populated and cross-reference with, on and on and on. It's a very sophisticated process, and they're just trying to get that information to a tipping point where they can leverage it to take advantage of somebody or something. So just keep the personal information to yourself and share it verbally with your neighbor, I guess.
Yeah, and some of this dovetails on number 7 that we're going to talk about here soon. There's a lot of crossover between that conversation and the one we just had, I think. So. Yeah,
well, let's talk about that a little bit, Joe.
Yeah, well, so like the tactic that we're talking about here is social engineering, and from a IT perspective, being a professional in the field, I will tell you that the technology, when we talk about things like firewalls, intrusion prevention systems, they're all really good these days. And a lot of hackers will not attempt to break our systems, they will attempt to break our people. Because at this day and age, with the advancement in security technology, people are our weakest link. And I don't mean that as a derogatory. I mean that because social engineering is incredibly powerful. It is far more powerful than any of us think. We all think we would say no in that moment, but it is shocking if you listen to some of these stories of how people are able to, convince people that they belong there, whether it's a physical, whether it's a phishing email or anything like that. Social engineering is the number one way somebody will take your stuff in this day and age with advanced, antivirus and all these other things. So, I want to be very mindful of that. And I also, I don't know if you guys want to talk about maybe some experiences you've had with social engineering. It's, I know for us, we have had people call our staff and say, this is Bob from IT. Well, we're small enough that everybody knows there's no Bob in IT. But, in a bigger company, that could most certainly work. I don't know, any experience with that, guys, social engineering in general?
Well, I think everything we see that does get through our guards is literally social engineering. You get an email or a text or something, and the first thing that there's a level of urgency involved in that, which is taking advantage of people who are distracted, super busy, overworked. I can go down the list and check off all of the things that basically our staff, our users, our cameras, folks. So if you take a look at that kind of a social engineering perspective, yeah, we've seen a lot of it. We've actually had stuff like people will be out on PTO. For instance, our CEO went out on PTO and put an auto reply on his email to everybody that he's on PTO. So what do? We get an email sent to other executive members that are listed freely out on our website. They get an email that, hey, I'm out of the office, and it looks like it's coming from him, from our CEO. I'm out of the office. I need you to run down and get me, 10 gift cards, $50 a piece. I'm doing this thing, blah, blah, blah. And, and when you get them, send me the numbers off them, kind of a thing. And, they are doing some of the best social engineering they can to do that kind of stuff,
a lot of things. Go ahead, Joe.
I was going to say, and that also applies to the physical world too. There are often times, like in business, and I know we're talking about how to keep yourself safe, but there's definitely times where, somebody will come into your office and they'll pretend to be a maintenance person or a heating and cooling person. And this is part of the testing that we do to make sure that these kind of things don't happen. But, you need your staff to know that check with IT, check with who's ever involved. I mean, those are the ways that people will get in. It's not just hacking remotely, it's also coming in and literally plugging into your network if you allow them to. So, I know this is, again, more home thought, but I wanted to give an example of what social engineering could really do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, with the advancement in AI, and I don't want to be a sky is falling kind of person, but it is going to take less than a sentence to be able to actually a spoken word for say if somebody has a video of you or you have a video online of you speaking, it will in the short future. I'm talking really short future, probably within 6 months. The technology is going to be so good at faking somebody's voice. And the video is still not there. It's going to probably be further out, but you may receive phone calls in the very near future saying, "Hey, this is your mom." They wouldn't even have to say your mom. I really need some money. Can you send me some money? And you'll really think that it's your mom. And they could say, "Well, but I need it sent here, or I need it whatever in my Venmo, or I got to pay this bill real quick, or something like that." And they can trick you into that fact, because you really think that it's your mom. That's one of the ways that if you trust is your voice. You rely on that as far as an authentication method. Hey, this is my mom I'm talking to. And I'm not just saying it's going to sound like a human where it's going to say one or two sentences and that's it. They're actually going to have a full-on conversation. So if you say, "Well, Mom, where do I have to send this money?" or something to that effect, they will actually be able to, in that same voice, carry on a full conversation with you. So, and that's not a feature that's 10 years out, or that's made up stuff. That's actually real technology that's coming in the near future. We had a question, Pam. I think you had a question.
It was a comment, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
She said we have had both of these situations happen in our family. Yeah, absolutely. And and this all kind of ties into one of the things we're going to talk about later, which is verification. And we're going to talk about it in the email context of phishing specifically, but it's verifying things. So, we've had attempts here at the office too, where somebody says, "Can you please send an executive email," it looks like, to send money to somebody. And, the first thing we do is we pick up the phone and we call. That's a form of verification. Hey, and I know the voice stuff makes it trickier, but when you're calling a particular number, there's a good chance you're going to talk to the person. But, it's those kind of things. And we're going to talk about the same kind of thing in the phishing here very soon, of how you verify, or tools to verify, or that you verify before you take an action. So.
Yeah, that's a great point, Joe. I mean, it's pretty easy to get caught up in the moment, but if you can just say, slow down a little bit. The urgency is always the trigger to me. And if something's that urgent, you need to kind of slow down and think about it a little bit. And then, ask the person, "Can I hold on a minute? Let me call you back," and instantly you're going to break that chain, because you're going to call them back and and they're not gonna know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So we can circle back to this a little bit more. Let's go on to number 4 here, which is keep your software up to date. Joe, you talked about this a little bit, in a sense that we have all kinds of defenses all over. We have stuff watching our email, antivirus. Not a single one of those tools that's worth anything if we don't keep it up to date. It's a constant battle. We spend a lot of time and energy keeping that stuff up to date, but from an end user perspective as well, there's a lot of stuff you should be looking at.
Yeah, when you have an online thermostat, or your washer is online now. Printers, you always have to make sure that the firmware is up to date on all of these devices. It's not just your computer anymore. It's not just your cell phone. It's everything. It's your Ring cameras, and most of this stuff does update automatically. You can opt out of turning those off, update automatically. On a consumer device, I would not recommend that. I would recommend having an update automatically because from an end user perspective, it's easy to lose track. And, did I update this? How long has it been since I've updated that? So very important to kind of keep an eye out and think of all the different devices that you have that are connected to the internet and make sure that you're updating those constantly.
The thing to think about is, we think about things like a security camera. Well, that security camera really is a computer that's sitting on your network with a camera attached to it, and a bunch of software running. So that computer could be compromised in some way. If there's a way to get on that camera or on that computer that's controlling that camera, that computer is now inside your network and it's got people accessing it or other devices accessing it, that it now has a clear and clean channel to get to that other device now and inject something into that, that step. And these devices are so prolific now that they're an easy thing to target. They can start looking at those and they can target all kinds of stuff, even the update process itself they can target, So trying to keep stuff up to date is a constant battle anymore. It's one of my pet peeves right now is that's all we do, it seems like, is, constantly patching stuff. Yeah.
And if you do have a device that goes end of life, say you have a thermostat that is no longer updating, but it works fine, gotta swap it out. You gotta get something that does that is continued to be supported, because that's going to open up a hole into your network. And these being wireless, you don't need physical access to your home. You can access an Echo through, there's some light you can beam to certain devices that will, you can hack them that way. So if they have access outside of your house, but through a window, there's a lot of different ways that things can be hacked that, these updates just prevent. They find these vulnerabilities. It's a lot like your car. It's another thing you want to make sure. Didn't even get into that, but make sure that your cars are, updated regularly. Most of those are automatically now. They're over the air. It's pretty surprising, but just gotta make sure that stuff's being updated.
All of this kind of sounds alarmist to me, when I actually hear what we're saying, but a lot of this stuff is, relatively new in the last 5 years. Things have just mushroomed into, so many different caveats for trying to keep yourself protected online. So it's not really alarmist anymore. It's really getting down to it. If you got a 5-year-old device, I would seriously think about, just replacing it, because 5 years ago, they didn't have the, anything in there for security typically, so think about that as where we've come in the last 5 years and how much different our environments are. So many things are cloud-based, so many other ways of hacking things now.
And this kind of dovetails into number 6 too, where use secure Wi-Fi connections. There's different kind of Wi-Fi connections. So if you have a really old device that's using old, what we call web encryption or something to that effect, that's definitely one of those things that you want to replace, just because those are easily hackable. You can easily inject code into the stream, the Wi-Fi stream, get access to data, sniff those packets, a lot of different things you can do. So that's a great point, Dan. If it, even if it is supported, you might want to think about if it's something that uses old encryption technology, like your router at home, your wireless router. I've talked to many people where they're like, well, my router works fine for me. They have a small house and it's using standard, encryption that it just hasn't been updated in a long time, using like 802.11g or n or something to that effect. That's something you definitely want to think about getting replaced and upgrading.
A lot of those devices themselves as well have extensions available on them, typically for free, to an enhanced firewall or just different tools that you can put on them, parental supervision type tools and stuff. Take a look at some of that stuff. I don't think, I don't think you can't be too paranoid. But definitely take a look at some of those. I know like Charter, I think even offers some, rudimentary firewall extensions that you can add to your Charter account even. They're worth looking at.
Yep, you can use their DNS, so you're not, there's a lot of different things you can do. We don't want to get too in the woods, but yeah, be vigilant, be cautious.
Mindful, which we number 5 is about being built.
Hey Dan, can we bring up your examples? I'd like to point out some of this stuff in the text in the email phishing.
Oh, sure.
I think we got some really good slides there to point out some things.
I gotta remember how to get over to them. Okay, this is a phishing example.
This is a text example.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, if you take a look at that, I mean, one of the first things to me to look for is if there's a sense of urgency. If there's a sense of urgency, slow down, take your time, look at what you're seeing here. The other one is if there's a link in it, why does my bank need to send me a link? Or why does, which one is this one? This is Amazon. Why does Amazon need to send me a link? And if they are sending me a link, take a look at that link. That is nothing to say about Amazon in it. So scrutinizing things.
Yeah, my general rule on whether it's texting or email is if I receive something from Amazon or PayPal or my bank, I will never click on a link, even if I'm 100% sure it's good. I will always just go to the website, go to Amazon, because if there's a problem with your Amazon account, when you log in, they're going to let you know. Go to your bank account, they're going to let you know if there's a problem. Don't click on a link ever. Just go to wherever you would normally solve that problem. That's my rule, and that will stop 90% of this if you do that. But really, like we look at this here, like at the top, who's sending the text? That does not look like anything I would recognize as Amazon. So there's a lot there. Yes, you already know how to get into your Amazon account. Do that. Don't follow a link. It may seem more convenient, especially with that sense of urgency. I need to take care of this now. But like Dan says, slow down. If it came to you right now, you've got time to figure out whether it's legitimate. And the email one too, the next one is really good. And I think this is the email one probably catches people more.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, that top left statement there, I think we had this in the last one too. Is this the usual way that this person would communicate with you? That should be question number one. If I've talked to Dan over the phone about every single thing that's important, and then all of a sudden out of the blue, Dan sends me an email and asks me to do something, that's not how we normally communicate. So, take a moment. Is this normal? And all these tips here, look at who it's coming from. Who's sending the text? Sometimes you'll see things like no reply, and that can be confusing. But check that out. If it's something that's absolutely not, it doesn't have anything to do with their name, that's probably an indicator. Grammar, that's always one of those things. Does it feel off? And then like Dan said, the biggest one, is there a sense of urgency? Now, sometimes we will get emails in our work with a sense of urgency, but they're usually expected. And all the things that, like here we tell people, if it's an external email, it's going to say external, and different things, tools like that we use to help our employees. But this is the area where you're going to get in trouble at home, or you're going to get your company in trouble by clicking on something. Because we can spend all the money in the world on security, but one click on something that we're not prepared for wipes all that out. And this is where social engineering and our staff are the key to keep us protected.
Exactly, Joe. And sometimes you'll get these messages and they just don't even make any sense in a sense that, here it says at the bottom, approve what? And yet we will have a good portion of staff may click on that approve button, and there're just so many things that just stand out about an email like this that basically to me should tell people to put the brakes on, but it doesn't happen that often, And Joe, you mentioned this before, is, we have all those defenses set up, but the weakest link we have is ourselves, where, we're distracted. Oh, I just got to get this off my plate. I'm going to go and do it, get it done, and we don't take the time. One of the things I mention all the time is, when in doubt, phone a friend, chat with a relative, call whatever help desk you have, ping some people and say, I got this email. It seems suspicious or not even suspicious. I just can't tell if it's really valid or not. Can you help me take a look at this?
Yeah, I have staff, forward stuff to myself or the tech team, and I will take that. I will take 100 of those emails every day if I have to avoid a ransomware situation or shutting down our systems. And I see a couple of our staff here on the attendance. Please email us always.
Absolutely.
I'd rather deal with that. Like, I honestly would rather deal with 100 emails a day than this, the outcome.
Yeah. And the other thing that, Joe, if you did not respond to this email, what's the worst thing that could happen? Doggone it. I mean, yeah, I have to reactivate an account or something like that. Big deal. I'm not going to worry about it. And literally, don't worry about it. It's not anything to be concerned about. We've all had to get back into an account sometime or another. We've been locked out. And when I say ping a friend or chat with your help desk or something, it sometimes takes 2 or 3 people to figure it out. Sometimes I've gotten somewhere I go, geez, I don't really know. So I do some investigation in the background, talk to Jeremiah. Jeremiah takes a look, and no, this doesn't look right. There's just something a little bit off about it. Ignore it.
And when in doubt, pick up the phone and call the company if you have to.
Absolutely. So that's the email. I mean, we've looked at some of the safe browsing stuff. You have everybody's seen this message, I'm sure,
Yeah.
I can guarantee you the antivirus that we use or any antivirus you have is not going to have you calling a number to fix something. Just not going to happen, or a link there. Basically, where your antivirus is. If you don't know where your antivirus is, that's a problem. But it should be something that's running down in the tray down by your clock there that you should be able to pull up and scan your machine anytime you want. And I suggest you do that frequently so you are comfortable and familiar with that process.
Yeah, and they use these tactics because they work. So a lot of times you'll see a warning like this and it'll say, Microsoft has detected, that your computer has an error and you have to call them real quick. And, it's the same. Yeah, here's a good one too. And this one's a little easier to detect because you can tell it's running in a browser, but I've seen them run full screen, look like an actual blue screen of, in Windows, and with a little dialog box that, you got to click here to okay or allow or something like that. And then you're either allowing remote access. There's a lot of different types that are out there, but these work. These cost, I think there was like $3.4 billion last year or something ridiculous, where people actually call these numbers or they do these processes that they have, and then they end up, tricking people into sending money. And a lot of people, you don't realize how good these people are. And as far as tricking, usually it's the elderly on this one, though, unfortunately. But they trick a lot of people into paying money to fix their computer, as they say. But
and Jeremiah, an interesting statistic that kind of plays on this is, if cybercrime were a country, it would have the 3rd largest domestic product in the world behind China and the United States. So if that gives you any idea how much money is out there, it would be the 3rd largest economy in the world.
Yeah.
That's how much money these things work. They look silly to some of us. We're going, I'd never fall for that. But there will be one that looks like this that you will think twice on. And that there's just big money. They would not do this if it didn't work and if it didn't make a ton of money.
Yep. Yeah, and a lot of these are designed where, especially if people don't have a tech person in the family, they're designed to not allow you access to the task manager, and a lot of other ways to terminate this stuff. So, and you reboot your computer and it'll come back up. And so, you know, if you're a person without a support system, you're like, oh, I better call this number so they can help me. That's the last thing you want to do. Find a local computer shop, if nothing else.
Exactly. Absolutely. You know, and Joe, that number is staggering when you think about it as the third largest economy in the world. You know,
Yeah.
but the other thing to think about is less than 30% of the compromises are with software and hardware. The other 70+%, and these numbers are probably outdated, it's probably even worse now, but 70+% are centered around social engineering and trying to trick you. I mean, I've been tricked. It's like watching a card trick and not being able to figure it out. These things are getting to that point. They're getting harder and harder to figure out when you see these compromises coming at you. So just be diligent.
I think if you take anything from this, you know, this conversation that we're having here, it's that, you know, passwords are important and two-factor, but also, like Dan has said multiple times, slow down and really think before you react to these things. Like that OK button, there's a great example. You know, there's only one option there. Why is there only one option? You know, that doesn't make sense. You know, so slow down and don't react, and you will be able to protect yourself far better than being very reactive on things. You know, I mean, that's probably the story for everything in life, but especially in this area. You know, slow down and think it through.
Yep. Being mindful. You know, we're all very busy, very distracted. I'm going to just say with, you know, unwinding of COVID and all of this stuff that's coming down right now, and, you know, working off site, working on site, you know, shifting my office back and forth. We're all a little off balance at this point in time. That's what they're counting on. You know, they're going to look at those kinds of things. You know, we can see stuff coming through that, you know, the agencies decided to discontinue some policy or do something different. You know, we need you to fill out this information and, you know, to make sure it's preserved or whatever. And those kinds of social engineering it's just going to escalate here as we move forward. We did talk about secure Wi-Fi, you know, and this is kind of one of my things that I like to try to tell people is if you're going out and you're in the public and you're going to connect to a Wi-Fi, you know, like say the coffee shop or something like that, definitely make sure it's a secure one, not something someone can just pop up without a padlock on. And the reason being is I can go down to this local coffee shop and I can set up a hotspot basically and say, I'm the coffee shop hotspot and there's no password on it. Go ahead and join. Well, people could join that and I could have software sitting between that hotspot and the internet, and I can watch everything that's going by, you know, and I can just glean and gather information. I could then turn around and get back to your device from that hotspot as well. There's tactics like that going on. So you want to look for that padlock on anything that you're going to connect to. The other thing I recommend, and it's a kind of a pain, but I don't automatically connect to any Wi-Fi. I set my Wi-Fi connections to be manual. For instance, I came into this room here, this conference room, from my desk where I'm wired. I came in here, I fired off the meeting, and it said I can't connect. Well, why? Because I don't even automatically connect to our local hotspots, our Wi-Fi access points. So I have to go in and say, click, connect, go ahead, connect to there, and then I connect. And the reason I do that is if I'm not doing that, when I'm sitting down at the coffee shop and I'm not even connected maybe to anything yet, my machine's going out there going, hey, is this hotspot available? Is this one available? Is this one available? Is that one available? Because it's going to try to automatically connect to any of them. And that can be seen by other people, you know, doing nefarious things. And, you know, I can get people rolling their eyes on this. You know, I'm out in the middle of, you know, wherever you're at. Lewiston, I'm in Lewiston, Michigan, and the coffee shop there, nobody, or the donut shop, nobody's going to be doing that there. Well, I wish I could say for sure they weren't.
Yeah, the coffee shop might not even know it.
Exactly. Yeah, and they may not even have a wireless access, available. It's just somebody comes in and assumes it's there. Oh, look at that, wireless access. Boom, connect. I think we've covered pretty much anything, everything anyways. Let's take a look here. I'm turning on all microphones. If anybody has a question they want to ask, you can unmute yourself. We can have a little more open discussion on this. Does anyone have any questions or anything they'd like to add to this conversation? Okay.
Diane, I see you on this webinar. I'm surprised you don't have a question. Oh, Teresa, go ahead.
My question is this. So many times with authentication for work, they want your personal cell phone number. How is your personal cell phone number safer than the office email?
So in this case, are you referring to them sending you a code?
Yes.
Okay, so that sounds like that's not set up correctly. So we can definitely take a look at that. You shouldn't have to do that. It should be an authenticator app for that. But we can talk about that, Teresa, for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people are against providing their personal cell phone number. But when you think about this, this is an ID. This would be like me asking you for your driver's license to verify you are who you are. And you are the holder of that device, so this is really just a method of authenticating and identifying yourself. So you would normally have your device with you, and that's just a very good way to confirm you are who you are. And they're not getting any other information, you're just basically signing up for that authenticator. And
yeah,
actually,
in some ways, it's like if you have a key for work, it's like putting the key on your keychain. It doesn't mean that your keychain is a work keychain anymore. It just means you've got a key there for your work,
Right.
Yeah. That's the way I like to look at it, at least.
So that's a great example. Yeah, I like that. I'm going to put Teresa's hand down.
Any other questions? Diane.
Yeah, so I'm at the coffee shop. Joe knows me. And I'm whatever, not that I actually am, to be honest. It's not, my phone is my connection, but I'm just interested. So if I decide to go to the coffee shop when I retire, is there any way that, I'm connected to this, I'm just out and about maybe. Is there any way I can see, you're telling me I should only connect with a lock, and often the coffee shop will tell me, our password is whatever, drink or whatever. Am I safe in using that?
Well, so that there's a lot of depends there. So taking this and I don't want to make this into an advanced conversation, but if you're traveling a lot, one of the ways you can protect yourself with is investing in some sort of a VPN or virtual private network. So that would be, Diane, when you go and you connect to the coffee shop, as soon as you connect, even if it's open, you then start your VPN, which means all of your traffic is encrypted. So that's an advanced thing. But if you were a person who was traveling a lot and you were connecting to these things, that would be my recommendation to try to secure yourself additionally in those environments where you can't necessarily guarantee the quality or the security of the network.
Okay.
I'm going to sum up what Joe just said is if your computer's running and you're connected to the internet, you're not safe. I mean, that's just really the reality of it is that being mindful of the situation you're in is really important. I would say if I'm in Lewiston in the coffee shop, you know, I'm feeling pretty comfortable at that point in time, especially if it's got a lock on the Wi-Fi and they provide me a password. That pretty much means that my computer's not just going out there and connecting to something that, you know, nobody knows about. So that's the mindful aspect of connecting there. But, you know, literally, I think that if someone really wanted to compromise somebody, they know where, for instance, Northern Lakes is, you know, they know where Northern Lakes is. If they sat out here in the parking lot across the street and just started at it, they could come up with something, I'm certain, that would, you know, lead to a potential compromise over time, whether it's dropping a thumb drive out in the parking lot or, you know, all kinds of different methods to do that.
That's a great thing that we didn't talk about is if you do find a USB drive in a parking lot, do not plug it directly into your computer. That is a way that people do that a lot for work. They try to, you know, hack people's work networks by dropping a USB and then somebody comes into work and they plug it into their computer and then they have access. But the same applies at home. You know, be careful. Don't just plug anything you find into things. Even sometimes at trade shows and things like that, when you receive those free USBs, they may have an extra gift on them that you don't realize. You know, so those that not to, you know, add more panic, but be careful what you plug into your computer too. Just random things like that. You've just got to be careful. I mean, for a lot of people, if you don't have the ability to check it, to me, if you didn't buy it or you didn't expect it, you probably don't want to plug it in.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah, it's really hard to even have this discussion without feeling you're being alarmist. You know, people will tell me, well, what information do they have that they want? You know, I don't have anything to hide, that kind of comments. And it is probably true, but over time, as they develop more and more information in the databases that they're working with, you know, there comes a tipping point at some point in time where they have enough information to do something.
Yeah, and you know, to your point earlier, Dan, you know, upgrading everything, the firmware on all those devices, those are all important things. But you know, if you take anything out of this, take that strong, unique passwords, multi-factor authentication, and don't click on links. If you do that, I mean, realistically, and I'm making this number up, 80% of your concerns are probably taken care of doing those things right there. And then the additional things make you more secure, making sure your Ring cameras are updated, making sure all those things are, you know. But if you're feeling overwhelmed, start with that unique password, that multi-factor authentication, and maybe a password manager. Just start right there. And that in combination of not clicking on links is going to make you much safer than you think.
Yeah. Great point, Joe. I think if you are sharing passwords between accounts, maybe that should be the first goal, is to start looking at ways of creating more unique passwords. You know, start with your more important sites and work your way down. And, you know, see if you can eliminate those shared passwords.
And I don't want anybody to come away from this overwhelmed. That's my concern. You know, that we did give you a lot of information, but we did front load, I think, the most important pieces and emphasize those heavily. So don't freak out about your online life, but think about it now. Don't freak out. I think there's a difference.
Absolutely.
And try to close your old accounts.
Yeah.
So if you have an old account with well, for say Ring, say you had an old Ring doorbell and you moved or you got rid of it, close that account. You know, don't just turn off service, close that account, delete it completely. Because you'll forget about it in 10 years, and in 10 years when they're hacking passwords a lot easier than they are today, it'll be a different story. So
yeah.
Well, we're running right up to the 1 o'clock hour. I want to thank everyone for coming in. Joe, thank you so much. Great dialogue.
Absolutely.
Jeremiah, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And if you have any questions, you guys know where we're at. Give us a call.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks,
everyone.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys.